Welcome to Superhero Showdown. This is episode 7, and this week I'm going to take a look at the superhero franchises and compare them to their comic book counterparts. We're just going to go through detail to detail. I'm going to look at them as a whole. We are going to talk about the bad ones, the good ones. I could go for hours with superhero movies, but I'm just going to pick a few franchises. So let's start with the Superman movies. I've gone on record here before saying I'm not a big Superman fan. So to me, the Superman movies are pretty passe. You have the first one, which is kind of boring. There's not a lot going on in there. It's weird that the ending to the first one and then they refilmed the ending for the second one. So in order for Superman to save the world in the first one, he basically runs really fast to turn the Earth backwards, which would have destroyed a lot of things in the Earth. So it really didn't make sense to me. But Superman 2, I thought Superman 2 was a really good sequel, a lot better than the first movie. I like the Kryptonians coming down, General Zod especially, and the whole fight scenes between Superman and the Kryptonians I thought were really good. They reused Kryptonite a lot in the second one. You have Gene Hackman is Lex Luthor in all the 1980s Superman movies. In the third one, you have Richard Pryor as the Toyman. You got like negative Superman, closest thing to Bizarro that we've ever gotten in the movies. Quest for Peace is considered one of the worst superhero movies, as the main actor for the franchise decided he was going to take his worldviews and put it into the movie about taking all the nuclear warheads away. You have, from there you had Superman Returns, which was like emo Superman. The whole movie is like whining, bitching, and complaining. I went to theaters to see Brandon Routh being one of the worst Supermans I've ever seen. It's a horrible movie. They could have done a lot better. The only plus side to that one was Kevin Spacey. From there we have Man of Steel, which is a reboot of the franchise after Superman Lives never could get off the ground. But you had what was really, I don't know, I don't like Man of Steel, but I see where they were going. They're going for a dark, grittier Superman, a Superman that wouldn't be afraid to, when the time came for him to do something, he would do it. He snaps General Zod's neck at the end of it. Superman then would go, and we have Batman vs. Superman, which on this channel I did my review of Batman vs. Superman, so you know my opinion. So let's talk comic to film. But I'm also going to include the animated series, because I didn't read a lot of Superman comics growing up. But originally, Superman didn't really have kryptonite. Kryptonite is something that was brought into the comics later, brought into the movie universe. Originally, the sun gave Superman his power. So if he was shut off from the sun, then he would have that ability. He would lose his powers, become weak. Now, Superman really, in the movie universe, the movie and the comics they get pretty close to it. Lois Lane does another Clark as Superman for the longest time in the comics, and they finally got married. In the new Superman series, Lois already knows about Superman being Clark in the beginning. It doesn't really come till Superman and Man of Steel. In the new movies, some of Superman's powers he doesn't even use, like the freeze breath is one that he doesn't use. You really don't see him use X-ray vision that much in Man of Steel or Batman vs. Superman. He is still fast. He is still strong. He could still fly. He's kind of like a young Superman. He really The comics are pretty close. I'm not going to spend so much time on the Superman franchise just because I don't know much about it, because I couldn't care less about the little boy, whatever he is, their version of Captain America, I guess. I couldn't give two shits about Superman. So we'll move on to a superhero franchise that has had missteps and great things. Batman. Now, when you think of the Batman movies, everybody just assumes that the 1989 Tim Burton movie was the first Batman movie that came out. But actually, in the 1960s, there was a Batman TV show that was on, starring Adam West as Batman and Burt Ward as Robin, and you had Burgess Meredith as the Penguin, Cesar Romero as the Joker. I don't remember who played the Riddler, but he was really good at it. Julie Newmar was a great Catwoman. They did a movie, and the movie was horrible. Like, I liked the movie when I was a kid. So when I was little, I liked it, because when I was little, they played the Batman TV show on FX when FX first started. So I was like 6 or 7, and they started playing Batman, and I used to watch it. But as I grew older, I've learned to hate the movie. Everything from the anti-shark repellent to them shooting a gun and everybody turns to sand, to the fact that a bush hides the Batmobile and the Batcycle and the Batcopter. It's just, Adam West to me is one of the worst Batmans. Especially if you compare that one to the comics, they're nowhere near each other. Because at the time of the 1960s TV show, they were trying to get away from the campy Batman stuff in the comic books, doing drug stories, doing darker stories, bringing in people like Scarecrow and Clayface, and trying to make more a harder edge Batman. Now the 1989 Batman movie, which, now one of the complaints people have is they say he uses guns. In the first 7 issues of Batman in the 1930s, or 1940s, I think it was in the 1940s, Batman used guns. He shot people. The first 5 issues were not, he didn't fight people like Joker or Penguin or the Riddler, but he fought thugs and he shot them with his gun. But Batman's parents was done perfectly right, in contrast to the comics. The Batmobile in Batman and Batman Returns is my favorite look of the Batmobile, aside from the Bruce Timm animated series from the 1990s. Very sleek Batmobile. Love the Batcave, looks awesome. Very close. They actually got, I think for that Batman, it was really close to the detective side, to not so much the fighting, but really the detective side. Michael Keaton did really well, in contrast to the comics. The Joker's if you compare it to the comics, you could have problems with it. It worked for the big screen. Having Jack Nicholson plays Jack Napier, who's a gangster who becomes the Joker. Now, in the comics, that's not how it happened. The Joker has like 5 or 10 different origin stories you can go off. He was a serial killer gone crazy. He was a comedian who got laughed at too much, so he went psycho. Or the one they use the most is the Red Hood. He was an assassin under a mask. And when Batman, in the movie, the way that he knocks Jack Napier into the batch of chemicals is how it happens in the comic books. So that's pretty much equal. A couple problems is the Vicky Vale introduction isn't exactly how she was introduced in the comics. Nox isn't the same way. They make Batman more of a fearsome thing in there. The Joker's a little too comical, but not as comical as Cesar Romero in the 60s. The guy who's supposed to be Two-Face, Harvey Dent, Harvey Dent is played by Billy D. Williams, who's most famous for Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. But Harvey Dent's a white man, not black. He's a white man. And I know there's this whole race cards and everything, but back then, people didn't really like that. It was taking a lot away from the comics. And one of the issues that there's really good fight scenes in there. There's good action, there's good drama. Everything's good about the movie except for they kill off the Joker. For some reason, Tim Burton wanted to kill off the Joker. I don't know why you would kill off Batman's arch nemesis just like that. Who's a great character. You could have brought him back a couple more times. But let's move on to Batman. You got Batman Returns. We bring the Penguin. Yet again, they kill off the Penguin, but you also have the Catwoman in there. You have the clowns. Penguin had like a different origin because in the comics, the Penguin is actually a rich person who went to school with Bruce Wayne and did not like the Wayne family. So the Cobblepots and the Waynes had a agreement aside from. In this one, Tim Burton put his usual creepy story flair on it, and it was good. Not as good as Batman, but Batman Returns were a high point. Because then we would go into the bad ones. First you got Batman Forever, which, worst Two-Face ever. You had somebody else take over the franchise. You had a new Batman and Val Kilmer, who was a horrible Batman. Really horrible. No Vicky Vale. You had Nicole Kidman as a psychiatrist. You had Jim Carrey as the Riddler, which is one of the few good things about the whole movie. Batman Forever is pretty weak, and then they brought in Robin, and they tried to have Robin be older than he was. But in the Batman comics, Robin was always his ward. He was younger than him. A lot younger. So bringing Robin in, and Chris O'Donnell, I don't think he really fit the role of Robin too much. And there's a lot of bad one-liners. The Batmobile was like lit up like a Christmas tree. The Riddler had like a hidden agenda and trying to make everybody's minds into television sets to make himself smarter, which is not what the Riddler was. Riddler was about making clues to test Batman. And then we get to Batman and Robin, the one that nearly killed the Batman franchise. And you had Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze. You had Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy. You had a professional wrestler playing Bane. You had George Clooney as Batman. So you have another new Batman. And then from that you have Chris O'Donnell reprising his role as Robin. And then you bring in Alicia Silverstone as Batgirl. So they made Batgirl be kind of Alfred's granddaughter or whatever. George Clooney was a horrible Batman in this. Mr. Freeze wasn't done right. Bane wasn't done right. Because Bane was this badass character in the comics that broke the back of Batman. And in the comics, Bane was a higher character than Poison Ivy, and I think Poison Ivy wasn't done right compared to her. In the comics, she was really into the plants and being by herself. And really a thorn in his side more than a villain. And Mr. Freeze, all he wanted to do was save his wife, which is completely different. I didn't like the way a lot of things played out. And one bad thing about Batman Returns, Batman Forever, and Batman and Robin is to give Commissioner Gordon a backseat. In all the comics, Batman always worked with Gordon to make it better. So they're connected one to another. So you go from that to this big break from 1998 to 2004. No Batman movies. And then we got Batman Begins. And Batman Begins I thought was a great movie. In the vein of the comics, was it accurate? No.
Night, Mr.